Good morning. Welcome to this workshop, and thanks for joining us on this fine Saturday morning. I think our workshop host, Dr. Anthony Locke, doesn't need too much of an introduction. Most of you might know him as a very senior and very well-acclaimed directorate official in the Hong Kong government. He's now working as a business administration scholar, and he was a senior practicing administrative member. He's been engaged in academic research and teaching activities at postgraduate level degree adult education institutes, such as being formerly the visiting fellow at the Faculty of Business at the Hong Kong Polytechnic University. So his workshop today is titled A Mundane and Transmundane Wisdom, investigating the integration and distinction between Buddhist philosophy and contemporary corporate management practices. His paper begins with the generalization and application of mundane and transmundane wisdom by summarizing the different schools of thought in management and the common challenges that frequently emerge in organizations and the practical application of management concepts. So what Dr. Locke will be doing today is to explore with us how Dharma concepts complement the shortcomings of mundane worldly wisdom. And he's going to be helping us to explore a new direction of study that will hopefully serve as a catalyst for activating a new study, a new discipline based on his demonstration of the contemporary values of interdisciplinary application between Buddhism and management. So please, without further ado, Dr. Locke.
Thank you. Thank you, Raymond, for the introduction. And it's my honor here today to share my experience and also the practical research findings. Hopefully, it will help us to, in our daily management of an organization at executive level, right? So let me briefly summarize the rundown. Now, to start with, I will talk about some basic concept and revisit the various theories and concepts related to mundane wisdom as well as transmundane concepts that could be used to complement and supplement our daily practices in this worldly environment. And after that, we will, now, whatever you see here on the PowerPoint slides, you will get a hard copy at the end, but I would rather explain everything first before I give you the hard copy as part of the learning approach, I think, from a professional point of view, hopefully. Okay, after that, we will have a self-assessment exercise, and through which the exercise, I give you an opportunity to get to know about your personal attitudes towards being a Buddhist, about the Buddhist values in general, from three different perspectives. And your assessment outcome, you need not reveal to any others. It's just for your own references. And hopefully that will be a very good starting point for you to make use of your attitudes and understanding about Buddhist values to help you to further upgrade your understanding and in the path of enlightenment. All right. So this is basically the rundown. And okay, let me go through. Now this is the outline. that I have just mentioned, and the idea of having to study the distinction and integration of mundane and transmundane wisdom with a hope that this would serve as a catalyst in initiating a new study discipline, and which might be very useful for the future. So, management concept, we can see things from two different perspectives. The mundane concept refers to we have to go through the cycle of migration, destruction, and recovery, and on and off again on a recycling basis. If you are only maintaining your level of understanding at this stage. However, if you can further upgrade your knowledge and approach, you may move into the transmundane stage by achieving the enlightenment, implying you could be attaining the nirvana stage. So this is the major differences to start with. Now, before I go into details, I think we need to know some of those forerunners who are contributing significantly to the modern management schools of thought. And there are three of them, Frederick Taylor, Henry Fayol, and Peter Drucker, very famous and familiar forerunners. And, well, Frederick Taylor is in fact named as the father of scientific management. He heralds the birth of modern management. In fact, he would consider that there is only one best way of getting things done by using the scientific approach, right? Whereas nearly the same time at the other part of the world, in French, there's a French industrialist who emphasized very much on how to increase the efficiency and effectiveness of operation from the practical point of view, rather than using concepts. And of course, Peter Drucker is far more practical, down to earth. It won't bother too much about the concept. He won't bother too much about the theories, but instead how things could be put into practical outcomes and practices is Peter Drucker's approach. So with this three forerunner, I try to summarize it in 5 schools of thought to help you to revisit those ideas about the different schools and how these different schools could help us to understand how to run our corporation at executive level. All right. Now, from the first one is the scientific school of management, emphasizing on that there are basically 2 types of people in an organization. One is those who manages. The other is who are being managed. And it is the responsibility of those who manage to find out that best way of getting things done. So using a scientific approach rather than based on experience, they would work out the best approach. And then use this scientific approach, they would try to pick the right person right type of person for engagement, and train them in a scientific way so that they can run the organization through those one best method. And at the same time, they would also use scientific approach to calculate their level of remuneration or compensation package so that they could be highly motivated throughout the whole operation. So this is the scientific approach. Now, another school of thought is called the process management, also known as the managerial function school, indicating that everything have to go through a process from the planning, organizing, commanding, coordinating, and controlling approach. Now, this is the original version in this school of thought. But modern days try to simplify it and summarize it in a four-letter approach, which is called the POLC, planning, organizing, leading, and controlling. So it doesn't really matter. Everybody have to go through this process. As long as you have learned that other process, then you will be approaching the professional way of running your organization. Now, the third school of thought is related to the behavioral approach. Now, everybody could behave differently in different settings in an organization. It could be from a personal basis, or sometimes on a team basis, or even on an overall organizational basis, right? So these three levels will affect the way they behave. And what you can see from the behavioral approach is observe their behavior in different settings. Now, people would behave differently in different settings when they are individual, or when they are part of a team, or part of an organization. The fourth approach I would like to revisit is about the system concept. Well, in this system concept, we say that organizations are basically an open system, which consists of three parts. A system from the input part to the transformation or conversion part, and then to the output part. Normally, people, what they can see is just the input part or the output part. In between, where things are being converted or transformed, it's just like a black box, and you could never know or understand what has been going on unless you are part of the key player in that part. So why we mention about the system concept? Simply because we would like to highlight the interrelatedness of subsystems within an organization. They are interconnected and affecting each other. So we would try to focus on the visible part, namely the input part or the output part, as a way to understand more about what are going on in an organization. And once it leaves the organization, it will be becoming the input part of another organization in its recipients' systems. So this helps us to understand how things are going on from a different conceptual perspective. The last school of thought is called the contingency theory or situational concept. which indicates it tried to overturn the scientific management of avocation. There's only one best way of getting things done. But instead, under this contingency concept, they would emphasize the answer to what is the best method is just can be reduced to 2 words. The 2 words is, it depends. So, indicating that things, you can't tell what is the best way of getting things done, but you have to find out how things are interlinked upon each other. So we have to identify the situation by various analytical approach. So having mentioned about all this, we would come to the very basic part. What precisely is management? How do we define management? Well, managers, of course, management is the duties of the manager, but managers are not supposed to get their hands dirty. Many managers over here are fully agree with me. Why? It's simply because it is a kind of art in getting things done through other people. You are not supposed to do it all by yourself. Well, you can, of course, you can do it all by yourself because you are very proficient, competent, professional, skillful in handling certain tasks. But what the organization has gained in such a situation is just one outstanding worker, not a manager. All right? A manager is not supposed to get involved in this kind of things. And so why I say it is an art is simply because there is no fast and fixed rule how we should follow and delegate things to your subordinates. And we would note that lacking of the modern approach is about the people-oriented focus, indicating that things would not be complete when there are conflicts in those social and environmental interaction about people's involved, because you have to get people to help you to get the things done. So this is on one hand. Now, if you are, things are not just stable because of the fast changing outside environment and the world, and therefore, if you are not able to focus on how people who are working for you can adjust and adapt themselves to the actual situation, the outcome definitely could not be a good one. So, modern management has highlighted the importance of people-oriented rather than task-oriented. And this matches neatly with the basic Buddhist philosophies and concepts. Now, when we are trying to assess or evaluate how good an organization is performing, in the past, they would focus on 2E, right? 2E. One is the efficiency. The other E is the effectiveness. Emphasizing, now, what is efficiency is the how we can optimize the available resources to get the most outputs, right? So that is some sort of calculation on the input and output formula, right? That is on how resources are being utilized. But you just keep on saving things or doing things in a quick run may not mean that you could be very effective. Why? Simply because there are objective presetted in advance that you need to achieve. So the other objective is how close or getting close to the original target is the effectiveness. Now, this is a traditional approach. However, in the modern days, we have adjusted a little bit instead of just focusing on the outcome in terms of the 2 E's, efficiency, namely the resources utilization, and effectiveness, namely the achievement of presetted goal. We emphasize on 2 things. One is the enabling process, how the process is being have gone through to achieve the desirable result. And of course, the next is the result, the outcome. Now, this we will see that the Buddhist concept, the practice of Buddhism teaches us the importance of spiritual development. It enables us to understand our spiritual well-beings must be taken care even during the work process in striking for the, to maximize the wealth and achievement status. And therefore, a more harmonious work environment in which everyone is more active and motivated to work together could generate greater potential for success. And this could be further elaborated through the very famous Heart Sutra, in which it tried to explain the concept about the bodhisattva who would work hard, refer to those who work hard themselves while simultaneously willing to help others to get rid of their troubles. And the initial few sentences in the Heart Sutra also highlighted the 5 aggregates in terms of form, sensation, perception, formation, and consciousness. And this would help us to understand or revisit the very fundamental ABCs of Buddhist philosophies. Bodhisattva can be wielded as a target for the manager or decision makers who pursue the same selfless ideologies of work ethics. While working hard to achieve the organizational goal, he also bears the right attitude towards life, bearing the belief that benefit others can at the same time benefit oneself in their leadership style. So if one can detach value from one's self, namely being selfless, and integrate Buddhist wisdoms into business operations, successful operation could be assured. All right. So with Buddhist wisdom, the leader would soon realize that not only economic performance in terms of 2E, profits and results are evaluated, but also the intangible attainment of the work spirit, namely the corporate culture and employees' morale. I'm sure in tomorrow's session, our counterpart will share with you in his workshop. What's that? It's about the corporate development, leadership training for everyone involved. All right. So I would like to compare the 2 different perspectives. The traditional approach of looking into the management, see whether it works properly or not, will give greater stress and weighting on the outcome itself. The outcome itself, but a little bit lesser weighting for the spiritual development. but an idealistic model in the modern management will try to overcome this shortcoming by give equal weighting to both. This would have certain implication as we unfold the concepts behind. Okay, now talking about how the mundane wisdom helps us to solve problem. One of the approach is using the 6W analysis model by Kipling, highlighting on investigating about what, who, when, where, why, and how. And this, we have the equivalent wisdom in the Oriental culture is called the Lục河法. I'm sure you might have heard about that. 何事何人何事何地何解如何, right? So that is the 6W equivalent in the Oriental culture. That is in trying to find out the problems, how to deal with problems from an investigative approach. Now, at the same time, after collecting all this data, you might need to set your strategies. The strategy is, from a strategic management concept, is the SWOT analysis. When we say SWOT, there are two dimensions. One is you're looking from outside inwards by looking into yourself, from the internally factors, by highlighting what are your strengths and what are your weaknesses. By knowing your strengths, you can maximize it. By knowing your weaknesses, you can try to overcome it, improve it, or avoiding things. So this is the looking from inside yourself. But things are not just based on yourself. From the SWOT analysis, we need also to look into the external environment, where the external environment, there are forces outside your organization which could be rather powerful. And you need to know how those powerful forces in the external environment would affect your performance. And there are two types of forces. One are, those are favorable ones. We call them opportunities. And there are also unfavorable one, is the threats. So by looking at the outside forces, you would be thinking how you can jump into the bandwagon of maximizing the opportunity to increase your output based on your internal strength. But at the same time, we should not overlook the powerful negative forces in the outside environment. If they are threats, if it is so powerful, there is no point of having that kind of head-on collision with the external forces. So that is the time when you have to make a sensible strategic decision by trying to avoid it, right? So SWOT model, in fact, also coincides with the basic Buddhist concept, which teaches us how to go beyond the surface of any phenomena in search for the underlying causes. Now, having gone through or revisit some of the managerial basic concepts, let's also at the same time revisit some of those Buddhist concepts. Hopefully, this might help you to recapitulate some of the ideas that are useful in terms of the transmundane wisdom. Now, Buddha said, if this exists, that exists. If this ceases to exist, that also ceases to exist. 此有故彼有，此生故彼生，此無故彼無，此滅故彼滅. So it is a kind of interrelatedness that is a kind of dependent orientation, 緣起法. Things are interdependent upon those elements outside. And that also related to the holism, 整體觀, and the doctrine of non-self, 無我論. Now, on the concept of dependent orientation, the whole world is an organic whole, right? When we mention it's organic, which means that things are changing, moving at any moment, containing intricate network which cannot be dissected. Each unit depends on the other for their existence. There is no single cell in existence alone or by itself. Now, the doctrine of non-self, Buddhism believes that nothing in the world possesses permanent, unchanging essence. Everything exists relatively, and Buddhism refers this to existence as empty. But this emptiness does not refer that absolutely nothing. It means that all living things are empty by its self-nature. So that is a very important concept. Mahayana Buddhism preaches the idea of emptiness, namely the intrinsic self and the inherent nature, to help sentient beings rid of themselves of the attachment to the subjective or objective phenomena. Now, by applying this idea into management, one can learn to put aside one's personal attachment. We cannot be too attached and be more detached in the interest of the well-being of an organization. So this non-self concept helps us to understand more about the overall interdependent and relatedness. We are looking into how the incorporating Buddhism into the corporate management. Now, from the basis of holism and non-self embodied in the theory of dependent orientation, Buddhism developed the motto of unconditional compassion and empathy. In Chinese is 無緣大慈同體大悲, in conveying Buddhist sentiments. Compassion is in fact the starting point of altruism, which emphasizes benefit others before benefit oneself, right? By holism, benefit others, indicating at the end of the day would still benefit you yourself. So, in noting such relationship, we would not be too selfish, but try to help others to achieve first. So if business is able to operate using the principle of benefit others with unrequited compassion, then every other aspects will subsequently be greatly improved and therefore increase the tangible outcome in this worldly environment. All right. Now I'm trying to give some example of mutualities in using the Buddhist concept and business administration techniques, and this table will certainly provide you some insight, such as the Four Noble Truths, 四聖諦, about pain and 苦集滅道, all right? Pain, suffering, arising, cessation, and path leading to cessation. Well, the underlying implication refers to identifying the problem, analyzing the reasons for its occurrence, formulating a solution, implementing the solution through this Four Noble Truths. And in fact, you can see the corresponding Mundane's wisdom in using the 6 W's and SWOT analysis in trying to identify what, where, when, who, etc., and how it could be used the SWOT analysis to find out both the internal and external forces that are dictating a situation. And there is, of course, the corresponding terms in Buddhism about the all-worldly phenomena, the greed, hate, and delusion, virtue, mind, and wisdom, and of course the four, the noble eightfold path, 八正道, right? So from the 八正道, right, the noble eightfold path, the right will, the right resolve, the right speech, the right conduct, the right livelihood, you can look into the threefold study, how you can use wisdom to handle the confusing problem, the virtues in handling the inappropriate behavior at work. Now, correspondingly, you can use the analytical approach in the modern management school of thought that we visited just now through this table. Down the road, we have the right effort, right mindfulness, right samadhi, with the corresponding factor related to flexible adaptation of the threefold study, as well as how to use your mind properly in dealing with deviatory behavior we observe or encounter in a work situation. And of course, we could use the corresponding analytical approach in management about the right methods. Right effort means to behave in the right way at the right time for taking the right action. All right? The right mindfulness stems from the right will and right resolve, focusing on using the different factors or elements which would help you to make the right decision. And this could be referred as being concentrated in our daily work. Not only can one focus on their work, but also able to relax afterwards in terms of the efficiency. Now, I can also demonstrate how Buddhism helps us in the HRM, human resources management. The greatest challenge in the discipline of management has always been related to people. Now, managers are entrusted with different types of resources. We call them 6M, from the manpower, monetary, material, methodology, down to the time involved. We call them moment, all right, 6M. And among all these kind of resources, I'm sure you could agree with me, the most difficult type of resources to handle is manpower, right? So the greatest challenge is the people, right? Peter Drucker redefined management of people by believing that in the new era where information plays a leading role, the traditional hierarchy can no longer describe the relationship between the supervisor and the professional employees. A supervisor should no longer be managing or commanding in that sense, or controlling the manpower resources. But instead, he should be someone like the symphonic orchestra as a conductor, as someone who will play the role as a facilitator to facilitate the professionals, I mean the workers, to function or to operate in the most timely juncture by producing the or performing the best musical work. Applying to this about the HRM, once again, the sixth patriarch of Chan Buddhism, Huai Neng, stay in the Platform Sutta, saying that the Dharma is here in the world. Enlightenment is not apart from the world. To search Buddhi outside from the world is just like looking for a hare with horns. In Cantonese, 佛法在世間，不離世間覺。離世覓菩提，恰如覓兔角. So what are the implications here through this transmundane wisdom? Now, this saying shows that Dharma is not out of reach in our world, in this life. In fact, the core purpose of Buddhism is to spread compassion and benefit the lives of all beings, including those who operate the business for us in our organization. So applying the 6 parameters and the 4 embracing virtues, 6到40, to managing your employees' spiritual well-being, one can establish the mutual trust and respect, allowing the employee to feel the significant and important, leading to the fruitful loyalty in return. So I saw the table here about the 6 parameters and management of staff morale in business by looking into the generosity, morality, patience, diligence, meditation, as well as the wisdom, right, through these 6 parameters. We can also look into the all-embracing virtues by giving, speaking the kind words, right, conducting and facilitate oneself with the benefit of others, accommodating and adapting to others. So, in conclusion, I would like to say that Buddhism is not merely a kind of knowledge. It is a discipline brimming with wisdom offered through practices. It admits that life is full of suffering and accepts the fact that we must constantly overcome obstacles and difficulties, yet it also encourages us to face such challenge with courage, right? Now, the essence of management is managing people, and to manage people is to manage their spirit or heart in the Buddhist sense. In order to manage the heart of others, one must be able first to manage their own heart. So through the study and practicing Buddhism, we may manage our spirit, and from that successful work will come easily and naturally. Now, some insightful prospects from my elaboration just now by helping you to revisit some of the basic concepts related to modern corporate management as well as the Buddhist basic concepts. Now, in order to alter our fate or results of our business, we must practice diligently by expanding our intellect and Buddhist wisdom, using our knowledge of transmundane wisdom to help others and promote Buddhist spirit of benevolence. Now, with such a prospects of fusion in mind, I try to hope that it will arouse the interest of you people who are actually involved in this area in your daily operation as a corporate executive. I try to use it as a pilot run. Now, in fact, more comprehensive coverage with further and more extensive coverage in a training through a training course must be used to help you to get a deeper, in-depth understanding of the underlying theories. And through this introductory session, hopefully I have motivated you to see things from this new dimension and perspective. And there are, as I can see, lots of other things are yet to be explored, such as in the management, we could have highlight more details related to, say, the strategic management, environmental scanning, resources allocation, competitive advantage, human relations skill, humanism, emotional management, marketing, advertising skill, etc., etc. So there are lots of things you have to go study in greater details. But at the same time, how to integrate them and complement each other. There are also important basic Buddhist concepts, such as the 3 marks of existence, the 4 great vows, the 4 immeasurables, the 4 basic elements, the 5 aggregates, 6 parameters, 4 embracing virtues, etc., etc. So hopefully this have served as a starting point, as a categories to arouse your interest to join me in this kind of research to develop a new discipline of study whereby we can amalgamate these 2 different streams of study together and make and facilitate us to generate greater outcomes in our corporate management. Thank you. So we have the handout of the PowerPoints, as I promised right from the beginning, where you can use it, which is in fact based on my articles that you have been given earlier today. And from that, it will help you to recap some of the concepts, the essence of the importance of the talk. Now, the next part Now, the next part is the self-assessment exercise. And I hope through this self-assessment exercise, it will help you to know your attitude towards Buddhist values. Now, we would like to focus one of the school of thought is the behavioral dimension. And through this exercise, I would like you to find out more about the meaning of the Buddhist values. Values are much more than just the core belief that dominate our behavioral lifestyle in reality. Buddhist value could be related to 3 different dimensions, including the religious pledge, the personal growth, the how you are handling the anxiety. So it could be an indication about your commitment target. It could be how it could help you to reinforce and be a motivator to help you to grow. It could be a source of achieving reduced anxiety by knowing more about the Buddhist values. So I'm going to give you a worksheet for you to do your assessment. Before, let me, or shall we have the worksheet for them first, and then I explain it to you later on, and how you can compute the outcome. So the worksheet first. No. Okay, let me quickly brief you about what you are going to do in this exercise, all right? Now, the instrument have 3 dimensions, namely religious pledge, personal growth, releasing anxiety, for you to measure your attitude towards being a Buddhist. I'm sure most of you are Buddhists, and that's why you are here to learn more about the related concepts. Even though if you are not a Buddhist, still, if you want to have the potential to becoming a Buddhist, then there are reasons why you need to upgrade your knowledge from there. All right. Now, here in this worksheet, there are all together 11 questions. You don't know which one refers to which dimension, but doesn't matter. You just be frank and to yourself in trying to highlight. There are 5 columns from strongly agree, agree, neutral, disagree, and strongly disagree. So let me start by highlighting the first question. Now, when I say I'm a Buddhist, it doesn't mean I'm purer or nicer than others, but it means I have too much ignorance, mental ignorance, and mental defilement to remove. I need Buddhist wisdom to help me out. So this is, see whether if you are, you claim yourself as a Buddhist, which one you consider to be more accurate, circle that number, all right? Now, let me go, before you decide, you can think about it first. Let me just go through these 11 questions together with you to get some understanding. When I say I'm a Buddhist, it doesn't mean I have more wisdom than others, all right? But it means I have been occupied too much, how to pronounce it? Arrogance. I need to learn to be more humble and have a wider horizon. So this see whether it makes sense to you. When I say I'm a Buddhist, it's not because I'm better or worse than others, but because I understand all beings are equal. So to what extent you agree with this statement? When I say I'm a Buddhist, I only love those to my taste. But Buddha loves even people he doesn't like, guiding them to be full of wisdom and compassion. That's why I choose to follow Buddha's teaching. That is another perspective. When I say I'm a Buddhist, it's not with the goal of getting what is in my interest, but it is for letting go of my personal clinging to all worldly desire. Next, when I say I'm a Buddhist, it's not because I pursue a smooth life, but it is because for the calm acceptance of impermanence in any adverse circumstances. Be calm, be confident like a king. Next, when I say I'm a Buddhist, I do not mean to manipulate others with the motivation of self-interest, but it is with the good use of the wisdom to benefit self and others while being empathetic to all sentient beings. The last four. It's not because, when I say I'm Buddhist, it's not because I want to escape from the world and pursue nothingness. But I know everyday life is within Dharma. To live in the present is to practice. When I say I'm a Buddhist, it does not mean that my life will no longer experience setback, but with the Dharma, setbacks are transformed into a cause for my personal growth. Okay, last two. When I say I'm Buddhist, my heart is filled with endless gratitude. Just thinking I was born as a human and have the ability to practice in my life with the opportunity to meet wise teachers and hear Buddha's teachings, I'm deeply moved by this unbelievable karmatic affinity. Okay, the last one. When I say I'm Buddhist, it's not because there is a God outside me, but what I find the true Buddha nature in my own heart. So try to think about all this, and I will tell you how to compute the outcome for your own interpretation afterwards. Meanwhile, I'm asking my colleagues to circulate the Chinese version of my presentation for those who are interested to know the Chinese counterpart of my English PowerPoint. Hopefully, it might help you to interpret the data therein, right? Yes. 你 agree 唔 agree 呢度嚇，即係純粹係你自己嘅 attitude 嘅啫。Okay. So while you are doing the self-assessment, if you have any question to ask, I can come along and help you to complete it before I give you the key for the computation. Right? I don't think you need the Chinese version. Why?
Beginning to study Chinese.
I'm glad I got a European counterpart to get my Chinese version. before you go, let me tell you how to do the computation. 俾份跟住嗰份你翻嚟做。Okay. I hope all of you have completed. Are there anyone still not struggling with your worksheet? Okay. 2 more minutes. All right. 2 more minutes. All set? Okay, no extension. Okay, our next is I give you the the key to work out your the marks. Now in the next slide, you will see that whichever questions, say for your answer for question 3, question 7, question 8, and question 10, add the value you have circled there and sum it up. So it will represent your score for commitment, target, and practice. The next one is as a reinforcer and growth motivator, you try to sum up your marks on question 1, question 2, question 5, and question 9. The last one is this: if you use it as a sources for reducing anxiety, then the 3 questions, question 4, question 6, and question 11 will help you to highlight your personal attitudes. Now, having all these 3 dimensions add together, your Buddhist value actual attitudes goes to the boxed area. So try to do the computation now, all right, before I help you to elaborate further, before I would like to answer questions from the floor. You get yourself committed.
More committed and more important than these ones.
Put all together now. So I will do the. I hope by now you might have completed the computation using this key to help you to get a proper reflection about your own assessment. And the next slide provides us some indication. Now, Buddhists with higher score on the following various dimensions tend to use Buddhist values as 1, commitment target or practice, which indication of religious commitment, right? You are more, you pledge to get more committed. On the second dimension about reinforcer and growth motivator, if you have a higher score, it indicates there are driving forces of achieving personal growth. You tend to get further improvement on your Buddhism-related behavior. All right. Well, the third dimension, releasing emotional anxiety, is a source for achieving reduced anxiety. People are worrying too much, and by being a Buddhism, a committed Buddhism, you will surely get reduced anxiety. Now, adding up all this together, this is the general and rough estimate of strength and attention that you have attached to Buddhist values. And from that, it might give you some sort of guiding principle from today, how you should use the Buddhist values to guide your life in this worldly earth. 娑婆世界, right? Okay, questions from the floor. I welcome questions from the floor or comments, feedbacks, observations, whatsoever. Okay, thank you.
Testing.
Dr. Locke, thanks very much. I've attended many lectures in my life. I'm 78 years old, and I produce a magazine called 溫暖人間.
Okay.
This is the best lecture I've ever had in all my life. I really mean it. Thank you.
You are being too kind.
No, that's really true.
You are a real Buddha, right?
No, I'm a Buddhist, but I'm really impressed by your presentation and your logical arrangement. It leads you to a clear understanding of what you are getting to and what you really want to say.
Well,
I really enjoy your lecture.
my PhD research is focused on adult training. I know the psychology behind how to help adults to get engaged in the learning process. So it's just a small trick. Right.
It also proves I'm a real adult. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions, observations, comments, please?
Hi, Dr. Locke, can I ask a bit about commitment targets? So, how
commitment target or practice. Now, through the Buddhist values, you are demonstrating you want to be a more faithful Buddhist by committing to the underlying values that we have briefly mentioned just now. You are a firm believer that these values would help you somehow. So no matter whether you are at the present state can achieve it or not doesn't matter, but it's a matter of your attitude, whether you want to be more committed or not, right? Have I made myself clear?
Yeah, so how should one interpret the score go higher and lower over time? So
no, well, you're right. You're right.
What's
the objective? In an actual this type of for interpretation, we need some corresponding data with a other target group and use it as an indicator whether you are high or low by considering about the percentage and the percentile in which you fall within. But this is more statistically interpreted. But this is a light session. I just help you to get some idea of yourself rather than comparing with others. Hope that might help you to overcome some of the doubts. Any other observation, suggestion, please? Yes. Edith is, in fact, one of the outstanding colleagues in my doctoral study. She was with me. It's last century, anyway. And she would like to say something.
Actually, I meant to say I'm not a Buddhist. I'm a Christian. When I look at that, I was trying to, I'm convinced and I'm confused. Because he said, if you were a Buddhist, then you have the score. Then I have my score. And if I'm belonging to a different religion, and I measure the...
Well, there are similarity between the Christianity and Buddhism to a certain extent in terms of its values. So it's just a different way of expression. No wonder you find you could believe in certain points that I've mentioned in this exercise. But at the same time, you could be confused because you are not so sure whether Christianity coincides with Buddhism somehow, and that needs another PhD study to to get to know it. Yes, Dr. Edith Moore is, in fact, my classmate. No. We start together. Anyway.
We start together, but because of something else, I was late 4 years later.
I see. It doesn't matter. You are a doctor now.
Dr. Locke, thank you
Yes.
very much for your wonderful presentation. I was born into a Christian tradition in Europe.
Yes.
And this was my cultural background.
Mm-hmm.
And since 40 years, there is my Buddhist practice.
Yeah.
And my being driven to an Eastern Oriental culture and source. At the same time, I work in Western economic world as a consultant.
You run your own business in corporate development and leadership, as far as I understand.
Yeah. And what my question points towards is, you are a senior expert, and you lived your life in this cultural environment called China and Asia. Do you see a change in the executive worlds in terms of being perceptive to that kind of teaching? Or has it been more or less the same over the last decades and nothing changed?
Things are fast moving and changes, I must say, simply because there are just like the SWOT analysis I mentioned, the external environment is fast moving. External environment include the political, legal, environmental, various elements, all this would affect, right? So how we could basically use this kind of Buddhist values to help us in the teaching process, in the sharing process. I think as a professional trainer, put it that way, I'm adjusting my approach and style. With such a batch of really intelligent audience, I have to do it in a rather inquisitive, investigative, and problem-solving approach in order to make it more value-adding and lively. I don't know whether you share with me or not.
My question actually points to in a direction like, did you perceive a change in the audience, like the executive world? Because when I talk of my experience over the last 40 years, let's say, the first 30 years of which I couldn't have addressed these topics in boardrooms. But all of a sudden it changed over the course of the last 10 years. All of a sudden, my perception is there is suffering has arrived in the boardrooms. So I all of a sudden walk through open doors with these concepts. And
I did.
And similar here.
Yeah, I need to change the style and pattern to be in line with the expectation of your audience. I think all professional trainers will need this kind of insight. I agree with you. Things are changing, and we have to keep adjusting somehow. Good point.
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much.
Any other? Yes.
I'm curious. This instrument, when was it developed? And when it was developed, what is the testing population? Because
no, same question as the one.
The international perspective, where Buddhism is considered more, they might have a cultural ethnicity background.
I know what you are trying to ask. In fact, that tallies with the question when you want to know how to get a better insight about higher or lower with a population that have been developed. Now, as far as the authority is concerned, the footnote in this instrument, I mean the questionnaire down there, have also indicated how the sources, how it comes from, but it is a newly modified, adjusted, and designed instrument. And as such, we need time to build up the data for accreditation. But at least, as I say, this session is meant to be an inspiring one to help you to know a little bit about your attitude towards Buddhism. And therefore, we have yet to go into that depth of academic research. I hope you may help in future. Right.
So it starts from, at least when it begins, is maybe a mix of Chinese, other people, European.
Yeah, or so people with similar background or different background as a reference point. Yeah, as a reference point, but it takes time. So it is just a young instrument. As such, I'm working on it, and hopefully more people will come along and help me in the research. Okay, one last question, please. We are overrunning.
Yes, thank you so much, Dr. Locke. My name is Brenda. For those of you, my doctorate degree is in business, so it's DBA. So I find your presentation and sharing really stimulating and inspiring. But what I've been looking at for all these years would be having an opportunity, because I've been in corporate management for 30 years anyway. As senior corporate
I
executive.
remember your topic is on CSR.
And corporate social responsibility and also sustainability. But myself being a senior corporate executive 30 years. So basically, I think this is an excellent initiative. And also, you called it a pilot run, but I call it actually one of the...
It's not yet mature.
Well, one of the very good blueprint for some of the academic practitioners, people probably like myself and others who could perhaps adapt it for future research, as well as being taught maybe in my MBA programs for my students as well. So I just want to compliment you and extend my gratitude to you for all the great work. And
thank you, Brenda. Thank you for the nice work.
Thank you.
You are a real Bodhisattva. Okay, so thanks for your time and participation in this workshop, and I hope everyone did enjoy and have something to bring home, at least the hard copies of my handout. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you.